Taste to Consider podcast. Yes, we are back for another episode, the final episode of 2023, and it was kind of fitting symbolic to intro this show, um, the last show of 2023, with Encore, Jay-Z's Encore, because this could possibly be the last episode period of a Taste to Consider podcast. Um, yeah, I've been thinking for a while about it. I'm not sure if this is going to be the last episode. I'm saying that now. I'm not sure if it's going to be the last episode, but I am sure of the fact that I just haven't been into it like that. I haven't been excited about podcasting lately. This could be like a one-off thing, or it could just be time. I would I would be lying if I say I never thought of ending this podcast, because this never was the plan, honestly, for me to have my own podcast, so to speak. Everything started out with Unproductive Unapologetic podcast, group podcast, um, and it eventually turned into something, an idea just to, venture off a little bit and, do something small while still doing the group podcast. But the group podcast, everybody decided they wanted to do their own thing and stuff. So it kind of became a permanent situation when, with my solo podcast, the Taste to Consider podcast. And, at first I was just going to focus on, just mental health topics and, my experiences with my mental health journey and stuff like that. Piggybacking off of my mental health blog, greatestiamblog.com. And I haven't really been even writing for the blog. I haven't written for the blog in a while. And one of the things that I know about myself is, like, I don't necessarily have a balance of letting go or continuing things or whatever. So my how I handle situations like that is an extreme. Like, and I'll give you like a small example. Like, if it's like a piece of Tupperware I don't want to wash, or I don't feel like washing after I've used it, I'll just throw that joint in the trash, just straight in the trash, because I'm like, shoot, I'll get another one. But certain things, have been hard for me to let go. And that's why this possibly being my last episode for Taste to Consider podcast is not a concrete, thing, because I know at times I can take my emotions to the extreme when it comes to trying to figure out whether to keep going with something or let something go. And, sometimes, things are just, for a season, and I know a lot of times when I have flirted with the idea of ending the podcast, has always been an emotional thought, because, maybe people weren't supporting me that I thought was going to support me, or I wasn't getting enough support by people that, I thought was going to support me, or, just the regular frustrations of life when you are trying to build something and it may not be moving fast enough. Or I got into situations where I compared myself to other people doing the same thing that I was doing, or starting out around the same time that I started out and stuff like that. And those have been the times where I've really flirted with the idea of ending the podcast, and I knew that came down to a lot of emotional reasons. So of course it didn't happen after I calmed myself down or I talked it through and stuff like that. So, but this time, is actually feeling different because even those times where I flirted with it, I still had an excitement for it. But I haven't been having an excitement for it lately. But honestly, just being in the routine of things, I continue to still save topics, save clips, save certain posts and stuff like that, just, in case. And just because that was just, my routine of things. But I haven't really even been on social media like that. Like, I don't even get on Instagram no more. Like, I don't post on Instagram. Even when I did the last taste review, I didn't even market it or advertise it on social media at all. Twitter, Instagram, nothing. I didn't advertise it at all. Um, so it was kind of like I just, wasn't feeling just the whole um, trying to market stuff. But I am still excited about the taste reviews. So that for sure ain't going nowhere. That's just starting. That's just beginning. I very much enjoyed the taste reviews. Shout out to everybody who's been supporting the new show on the Taste to Consider Network on YouTube. So like I said, this is it's New Year's Eve right now, and um, I wanted to record one last show for 2023 to end it off. I mean, like I said, I already worked on this show. This was a show, a light show. Wasn't that heavy on topics and clips and stuff like that. Um, and I ain't gonna lie, I kind of procrastinated this weekend, even trying to do it. It's Sunday right now, New Year's Eve, and but I just had to sit down and do it. And it's even funny just sitting in this position right now behind the microphone and stuff because it's been a while. It's been a minute since I recorded a podcast. Um, and even this week, like I found myself, even when the times that I randomly got on social media, just out of uh finger habit. My fingers just tapping it and popping up. Like I saved a couple of clips and topics for a possible episode, And that's why I'm just like, I don't know if this is the last show, but if this is, I wanted to end the year of letting people know something, you know. I just didn't want to leave it open ended like that. So, you know, this is possibly the last taste. One last taste, possibly. One of those might end up being the title of this episode. But let me officially introduce the episode. I didn't do that yet. I know it's been a while. But I was ready to officially introduce the show. But I just had to, talk that out a little bit. So here we go, right here. It's a Taste to Consider podcast. I'm your host, Dirk Silver, and we are back for another episode. Yes, and like I was saying, um, yeah, possibly the last taste, one last taste, whatever. Um, but since the last time I recorded, like pretty much what I've been up to is just burp number one. Dang, I had to get that. That was a good feeling. But yeah, I've been since the last episode. That last episode was November 6th. Dating games, the list, and one of the other reasons why I just been kind of like turned off with podcasts and stuff like that. Outside of it, not outside of me not feeling excited about it, and it's starting to feel like a burden, so to speak, and I've talked about plenty of times before how, just going from a group podcast and playing my role and doing, certain jobs of producing the show and, getting topics together and all that other stuff and, getting the the space together, the studio together. It's different when it was just me doing it as a whole, but I had that excitement to get me through it and stuff, because I went through a long period of time of, doing a lot of episodes every weekend. And then at times I would have my frustrations and stuff like that where um, I would be turned off a little bit and may have missed a weekend or two and stuff like that. But I still had that drive in me to podcast. But outside of that, like one of the other things that have been kind of like turning me off from podcasting and stuff is just the whole landscape of podcasting and social media in general, with all the black men versus black women talk and the conversations and stuff like that. Is honestly have been getting very annoying to me. And you know, even though I involve myself in some of these conversations and stuff, and I try to keep it from a different kind of angle than some of that clickbait stuff and that, you know, content over everything mentality and, clout chasing and stuff. I was sprinkling in other things that I'm interested in, the politic aspect, the quote unquote conspiracy stuff, and, you know, just other topics. I had my Blackity Black Woke segment. I would talk about TVs and movies and stuff. And I would try to switch up the episodes every now and then, just like when I did the Black Love movie bracket, one of my favorite episodes to do. And I would try to get guests on his as much as I can. And I still, I even before getting into this position, being in this position right now of it possibly being the last episode already, I already had like two guests lined up, two possible guests lined up to do a show on that, was something different. And, but just that's one of the reasons why I ain't even been on social media like that. Just the frustration and just like being turned off from the black community and us having these same conversations over and over again. And it's so much more out there for us to talk about. And I just you know I was being when I was talking to people about this possibly being my last show. One of the things that I was told was that maybe you just need a break right now. Maybe you just need a little break. But then in my mind, the way society is now with social media and it being a microwave society and content being pushed to you at all times of the day, night, just floods of content. It for somebody like me that's really trying to build, my brain and the podcast and stuff like that is not very, to me, it's not very advantageous to take a break, like a long break. Shoot, a day is too long. Taking one day is too long right now for being a content creator or whatever. And for a podcaster that podcasts every week, taking a week may be detrimental. Shoot, 2 weeks is a long time to be taking a break. And just me being a supporter of other podcasters and listening to shows and stuff like that on all levels, it's talked about a lot how taking, breaks can be bad for, your brain and building yourself up and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the things that, have been factored into all of this that I'm sitting in right now with this possibly being my last show. But other than that, what I've been doing since the last show is, I talked about this before, but I didn't really go into depth about it. I've been going to therapy ever since 2013. And one of the things that each and every therapist that I've had, because I've had several different therapists throughout those years, due to insurance and just it's just time to move on and not really being compatible with certain therapists or whatever. Like majority of the therapists that I've worked with, they all told me that I should write letters to my parents on, the my feelings and how I saw things growing up and how those things made me feel and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I've been working on since then. Um, I wanted My goal was to finish one of the letters, which was the one that I started on first was the letter to my mom. And I wanted to finish that before the 2023 ended. And I have to say that I'm not even close to finishing that. And the reason why I started with that one first because my relationship with my mom as a man as a boy at one point in time, that was the biggest relationship. And I know with a woman that would be her relationship with her dad. So I made it a goal to finish that letter before the new year. But yeah, I don't see that. I mean, shit, we here New Year's Eve right now, and I'm not finished. But that's been like a suggestion and a homework assignment for a couple of therapists that I've worked with, and I finally decided to sit down and work on it because all of them that suggested this and gave this as a homework assignment always say you don't have to give the letter to her, just write it. And in my mind, me being a man and me looking at it from a logical um, perspective and stuff, I'll be like, so what's the point of writing a letter if I'm not gonna give it to her? And I don't think that I don't necessarily have a problem giving the letter to her if that was the recommendation, but I'm not sure if my mom will be ready for the things that I have to say and stuff like that. And I remember just going through therapy, like one of the first therapy session that I ever gone through, and when that therapist, he was telling me, his thoughts on, my background and stuff like that. I was trying to protect my mom and his thoughts on what I went through and stuff like that. So I know that's still kind of there in a way, so maybe I'm not 100% ready if that was the recommendation to give my mom the letter. But I finally got to the point where I was actually ready to sit down and write it, and I started out already, writing the letter. I'm a page and some more um, into it already. But it is a lot of things to flesh out with that particular relationship and the things that I went through, the things that I experienced um, with my mom. I saved my dad's letter for last because it's not that I don't have. It's not that me and my dad didn't. My relationship with him wasn't. I didn't go through anything with him, but it's just it wasn't as deep. And honestly, man talking to a man, it don't have to be that deep. I could just honestly like if I wanted to, I could just say to my dad what I felt. Like dad, why the hell you ain't come to none of my basketball games? Why you ain't come to none of my baseball games? Why you ain't come to none of my track meets? If you was around more, what I'm saying, if I had that discipline and you being excited about me, then I wouldn't have been in high school chasing the girls around. I would have focused on, the sports and stuff like that. That's something I could easily say to him, which I haven't. But yeah, that's why I said I saved that for last because that's something I probably can just go to him and talk to him about. Um, but with my mom, is more deeper. A man's relationship with his mother is very impactful. It's very trying to think of the right words, but it's very important. So I ain't gonna sit here and try to figure out the word. Y'all know. But yeah, So, um, I finally got to the point where I'm ready to, I actually was ready to sit down and start writing. And like, once I started writing it, because I started writing it a while ago, honestly, I would say with me just being me and being hard on myself, I should have been finished this letter. But rehashing things and bringing up old stuff and feeling certain emotions and going back to places, and then you get to the point where you be like, damn, I don't even want to deal with that shit no more. I don't want to deal with it right now, or you know, um, it's kind of hard like getting right back into the mode of um revisiting stuff and even discovering things, because in the midst of me writing that letter, I started discovering certain things that I totally forgot happened, or I totally forgot that I felt and stuff like that. So, that's one of the conclusions I came to with, what's the point of writing a letter? That's one of the points of writing a letter right there. Discovering things that I may have, um, put in the back of my mind and stuff like that. So, um, and just seeing, writing the letter and seeing how a lot of the, well, I ain't gonna say a lot of things, some things that I experienced as a child with my mom that I actually, am still experiencing today, in all of my life, not just my love life with women, but certain things with my job and how I interact with certain people and how I see certain things with my friends, or how I try to protect myself, and how maybe I'm in defense in some ways, and how that came about and stuff like that. So all that stuff is interesting. You know, but that's pretty much what I've been up to. It doesn't look like I'm going to be done with the letter before the new year, but that's cool as long as I started, and my goal is to finish it. Period. So, it's, that's all I've been trying to focus on right there. But it definitely has been bringing up, a lot of stuff. But I'm finally getting this damn letter out of the way, because I'm tired of hearing, my therapist that I've been working with bring this up. But I know it has been impactful, and I know it's, so a lot of the reasons why I'm in certain positions that I am in today, with making decisions and stuff like that, and how I live my life and stuff, how particularly in, relationships, not just romantic, but, all my relationships. And it's crazy because, what this episode is about, deals with a lot of how parents impact us in our lives, and, how that can motivate us to do certain things or keep us in certain places and mindsets and hinder us in some ways, et cetera, et cetera. You can mark it all down, because that's how it is. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to since the last episode, and just contemplating on what's going on with the podcast. But like I said, the taste reviews aren't going anywhere. I very much enjoy those, and people have very much enjoyed those as well. Um, so let me get into what the episode is about, and what it was going to be about when I came up with it weeks ago, last month. I, this episode was supposed to be recorded pretty much the week after uh dating games episode, dating games the list episode. So like I said, it was going to be something light. And this episode going to be something light, even though I talked about this kind of heavy, but yeah. But pretty much, last episode was that I was going to record, which is this one now, was going to be called Doc Watch. I just, because I just sat down and just watched a few documentaries that I thought was really interesting, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep throw a light little episode out there and talk about a couple of these documentaries that I watched. So at that time, I watched 3 documentaries: the Milli Vanilli documentary, burp number 2, burp number 3, the Milli Vanilli documentary. Hold on. Burp number 4. The Vanilli documentary. The Sylvester Stallone documentary, which was called the Sly documentary. And the Tyler Perry documentary. That one pretty much got added on to the show because that one came out a while after, I watched the Milli Vanilli and the Sylvester Stallone one. But yeah, like I was saying, how it's interesting that I started talking about that the show ran. It took so long for me to record again, and how I started working on the letter about my mom and stuff like that, and just talking about the how parents impact us in our lives or whatever. And these 3 documentaries have like showed that how these particular people, these celebrities and stuff, how their parents impacted their lives in certain ways. But I'm gonna talk about the documentaries as a whole as well. So but those elements were a part of the documentary, of course. Because they it's basically a biography or autobiography of their lives, and with these documentaries. So I'm gonna start with the Milli Vanilli jump. The Milli Vanilli documentary. I forgot what. I think it was on the Showtime app. I believe it was the Showtime app that I watched it on. It's been a minute since I watched it, but of course, I'm the note king. I take notes, so I was taking notes while I was watching it. So I got my notes here, and the Milli Vanilli jump was a good ass documentary. And before I forget, I didn't add this to my note taking, but I just recently watched the Bee Gees documentary on the Max app. That's the HBO app for those that don't know by now. Yeah, and that was one of the best music documentaries I've seen in a while. It was a very good documentary, and I've always heard of the Bee Gees, but I never really, just I heard of them, but I just didn't know nothing about the Bee Gees, and it was crazy. Like, that documentary showed me how influential the Bee Gees were, period. And a lot of R&B artists remade their songs, and a lot of producers that produce rap records use their music for beats and stuff like that. So, but that was a very enjoyable documentary. So check that one out, the Bee Gees documentary on the Max app. But yeah, back to the Milli Vanilli jump. So the Milli Vanilli jump, man, this one was a good documentary, but it was sad as hell at the same time. So this is my first time looking at the notes since I've taken them. So let me see. Yeah, so it was two artists that was part of Milli Vanilli, Fab and Rob. And Rob, he was adopted. From what they said on the documentary, his mom. So they not from America, of course. I forgot where they was from. But they was over there in Europe somewhere. But Rob, he was adopted, and like his life already started off kind of rough. Rob was the light skinned dude, and his mom was a stripper at the time, and his dad, from what he was told, his dad was a U.S. soldier that was like stationed over wherever he from, and got his mom pregnant. But that's all he pretty much knew, and his mom couldn't take care of him, so he was adopted. And they both had rough childhoods, according to the documentary. And like, just watching the documentary one of the things that I picked up, and they alluded to it as well, was that they their whole lives they was both pretty much looking for a family. Um, Cause Fab, which was he was the he was the dark skinned dude, and I think yeah he was the dark skinned dude. Like he ran away from home and all that other stuff. Let me make sure I'm getting this right, cause y'all know I like giving right information. But I believe I am correct. But I'm just gonna take a quick second to look this up to make sure I'm getting the people right. Make sure I'm getting these bangers right. Let me see. Let me see. Yeah, they was from Germany. Yeah, they was a German R&B music act. Um, yeah, Fab was the dark skinned dude, and Rob was the light skinned dude. Yeah, Fab he ran away from home and all that other stuff. So they both had like rough childhoods and stuff. And throughout the documentary, they pretty much show how their childhoods impacted their lives and played a role in them, participating in Milli Vanilli and being lip sync artists. Yeah, so pretty much they started out as dancers slash performers and stuff, and they was dancers on like a TV show that was over in one of those European countries and stuff, and they they was dancers for performers for like this TV show. It was almost like a Soul Train type of show, or I forgot what that other show was called with Casey Kasem, but it was a show like that, and they would have like artists that would come on the show and sing, and but the show would provide the dancers, and them two were the background dancers for the performers. So what else? Yeah, when they first got started with the Milli Vanilli joint, there of course it's the same old story every time with artists back in the day and even now. They didn't read their contract. They all they knew was that they was about to be famous. They was about to be famous and stuff like that. And they just didn't care about the contract. They just knew that they was gonna be famous. They was from what Fab said, the dark skinned dude. He was like they were hungry, they were poor, and they was desperate. They was desperate for attention. They was desperate for love. They wanted money. They needed a place to stay, etc., etc. And of course, throughout the documentaries, it's going to be different accounts of how things went down. So Fab, he was always talking about how when they first got approached about doing the lip singing that they refused or whatever. But I don't think they refused. I don't. And the other side, that pretty much said that as well, that they didn't refuse, and that they was very excited about doing this. What else? Let me see. Yeah, the producers and and Milli Vanilli, they had totally different stories about how the whole beginning of all of this went down. But what was interesting was the main producer who put Milli Vanilli together. He did this before, like even before Milli Vanilli, he already had a group that he put together, and they was lip singing, and he wasn't paying them the proper things. Saying he swindled them with the contracts and stuff like that. So this dude, and he was a white dude, he knew what he was doing, and he kind of said it in like some of his when they was showing like past interviews and stuff like that. He knew that the black genre, the black people were the it thing back then in music, and that was during like the 80s and stuff. So that's why he was always trying to find black people to do this little lip syncing thing with. because he knew that the whole look and the popularity of it, same shit that be going on today. Black Americans and black music and stuff like that run the culture. So he was trying to emulate the black music scene, black American music scene at the time. And you know what I'm saying, it ended up hitting with Milli Vanilli. It started, you know what I'm saying, it became pop. It became popular music. So this wasn't no one-off thing right here. This is something that he was doing even before Milli Vanilli. He even did that shit after they got found out. But he started a different group and called them Milli Vanilli. But I'll go into that a little later. But what was one of the most interesting things though about this whole situation was how long it took for people to figure it out, because Fab and Rob, the Milli Vanilli dudes, their talking voices was totally different from their singing voices. These Bammers couldn't even speak English for real, but then they can sing the songs in English. Like so, and just saying that or whatever, that just had me like, bruh, this is why people gotta stop being so caught up into celebrities and what's popular and following with the trends and stuff like that, because there's no way that these Bammers should have got away with this from the beginning. They could barely speak English. Their accents was heavy as hell, but all of a sudden they singing perfect English and sounding like American people. This shit was crazy. They had terrible English. They could barely speak a sentence in English without fumbling. But one of the things that I do give credit for, like, people started once their music started venturing over into America, that's when people did really start questioning it a little bit. Not everybody, but some people, some of the music media, the music writers and stuff like that, they started noticing certain things and they started questioning it. But the overall general public, nope, nope, not at all. Nope, they just went along with everything. But that's pretty much when things started falling down for them, when they got signed in America. And they got signed to Arista Records. And what was crazy about it is at the time Clive Davis was running Arista Records, and they they was in that documentary line the whole time talking about some they didn't know anything or whatever. They knew. Them Bammers knew. You could tell how they was answering certain questions when the people who did the documentary was confronting them with certain things. They was trying to catch them by asking questions in a certain way, and you can tell how they got caught up a couple of times, and they was trying to just keep it real PR with their answers and stuff like that. But they knew that them Bammers wasn't the real singers, but they was just the Milli Vanilli, they just blew up. You know what I'm saying? So all they cared about was that money. So, of course, by the time they got signed to Arista Records, that's when they blew up. You know what I'm saying? That's when they started getting nominated for Grammys and stuff like that. And the original producer that was still producing them at the time over there in Germany, he didn't want them to sign, or he didn't want them to even go over to America. He was cool with them signing, but he didn't want them to go over to America because he knew that they was going to get found out. And of course that they did. Of course they did. They got found out. And when they originally got caught was when they was having, everybody who know about Milli Vanilli should know this story. When they did that concert and the machine that they was using to play their vocals started skipping, and it was Rob, the light skinned dude. He had ran off the stage, and the music was still skipping or whatever. So yeah, that's when people really started asking questions or whatever. But by that time, like once they got over to America and stuff, that's when they started getting heavy into like drinking and drugs and stuff. And they said that they was pretty much doing that because they was getting, they was trying to deal with the fact that they was lying about, singing and stuff like that. It was becoming stressful for them. It was a burden trying to keep that lie going and stuff. But when people really figured out that they were lip singing and they were a joke, period, was when they got nominated for the Grammys. And this is something that I didn't know. E- Everybody who was nominated for a Grammy and has to perform, they have to perform live. They can't do no lip singing. But Milli Vanilli said, fuck that. We're going to lip sing anyway. And they showed the footage and everything from that Grammy performance and how people in the crowd, their reactions to it. That's when people realized that they was lip singing. And people was pissed about the fact that they came to the Grammys and lip sync because, like I said, it's a rule when you perform at the Grammys, you have to do it live. And people was pissed, and then that's when they knew. And the crazy thing about it is, the only reason they was nominated for a Grammy was because their manager, they had got a new manager when they signed to America. And this manager, he was an American manager. He claimed that he didn't know that they was lip singing. He said nobody didn't tell him anything. And he said that he was the one that put in the bid for them to be nominated for a Grammy. Like the Grammy board or whatever they call it, they don't just nominate people. You have to put in the bid for it. And he did, and that's what started everything. And that's when everything started spiraling down from that Grammy performance. um, but what really kicked everything off and just ended the whole charade was when when it was time for them to work on their second album, they wanted to sing. They wanted to really sing on their second album. Arista was against it pretty much. Um, and this is what I'm talking about. Like Arista claimed they didn't know, but they was against them singing on. So how y'all didn't know, but y'all was against them singing? Like it was a contradiction with what they said and how they put it in the documentary. Granted, it could have been an editing thing, but I still thought that it was weird that Arista was hesitant about them recording their second album. But the original producer who was still producing them, and he wrote the song, he wrote all the songs that became popular and stuff, white dude. And he definitely didn't want them to sing on the album. So in the midst of them having all this success and stuff like that, they started feeling themselves. They started, um, thinking that they was better than people and other artists that was actually singers and performers. They actually started believing the lie that they were the real people that was singing these songs. So they started shunning the original producer. They started ignoring them and stuff like that and telling them their demands. We want to sing on this second album and all this other stuff. We ain't gonna do this, we ain't gonna do that. So then what ended up happening was that producer dude, like I said, he already done this before. He already put groups together before and did this little lip sync thing. He said whatever. He outed them this himself. He told on them himself. He he did a press conference and everything talking about how they was lip singing and all this other stuff. He put them out there and ruined the Milli Vanilli group and everything. He said whatever. I mean, by that time he already made millions on top of millions on top of millions in the 80s. Like this dude made he was making like 9 figures off of them at that point. So he ain't care. He probably looked at it like, I could just put another group together. I mean, like I say, he wrote them songs and stuff that became popular. So, hey, yeah, he ended up outing them and everything. But by that time, once he outed them and the group, the Rob and Fab, they they broke up essentially and ended everything, and that's when like some of the real mental and emotional trouble started happening. They was getting heavy into the drugs and stuff, particularly Rob, the light skinned dude. He ended up having an overdose and stuff and dying and stuff. And one of the things, like, even before he died and they was playing like old clips from interviews and stuff, he was saying how, his childhood and not, having a family and stuff like that really put him in a position and to crave that fame and that attention and stuff from the fans and the public and stuff like that. It was like a drug. It's something that he needed because he didn't get it. And then Fab, he said the same thing. The dark skinned dude, he said the same thing. They pretty much basically said the same thing, that fame and stuff, was um, fulfilling their desires from their childhoods that they didn't, from the things that they didn't get and stuff like that. And the dark skinned dude, he ended up, recovering from, his drinking and drug habit and stuff like that. He ended up going into like a hibernation or whatever. Ended up, getting married and stuff like that, having a family. And right now he's performing. Like the dude can actually sing. The dark skinned dude, he's like he out here performing. Got his career, and he started even a few years after Milli Vanilli broke up or whatever. He started singing and stuff like that. So dude can sing. So yeah, it was an interesting documentary. It was a sad one, with the guy Rob committing suicide and stuff like that, and you know, the reasons behind it, and their want and their desire to be loved and have a family and stuff like that, and how yeah, that was rough. That was a rough one. That was a rough documentary. Well, I ain't gonna say it was rough. It was a good documentary, but that portion of it, which was on the tail end of the documentary, um, that was a. It was sad. It was sad that that it ended that way for Rob, the light skinned dude. So yeah, it was a good documentary though. Good music documentary, and it definitely gives you more insight on Milli Vanilli and everything, and not just what we've always known is that they was lip singing. It gives you a more in depth. It becomes personal, and you can relate more to the two guys, Fab and Rob. But the other documentary that I watched in that time span was the Sylvester Stallone documentary. Let me take a sip. Yeah, so that Sylvester Stallone documentary was a good one as well. Um, just from my notes, and I know this is gonna refresh my memory because the notes from the Milli Vanilli jump refresh my memory on that one. But what was interesting was Sylvester Stallone. He from New York. He grew up in New York or whatever. He grew up in a boarding house. Like he had his parents, his father and his mother, but they was so caught up into their own lives with working and stuff like that. It was a time when him and his brother had to live in a boarding house because their parents were working or they were so consumed with their own struggles. Um, so it was like from what I got from his explanation was it was times where they had to just go live at the boarding house and then they'd come back whenever their parents was had time for them type shit. So he also said that he felt deprived and wasn't nurtured by his parents, particularly his mother. And he said maybe this is his quote. He said, maybe the nurturing comes from being embraced and loved by an audience. And this is something similar to what, Fab and Rob was saying on the Milli Vanilli jump. How, they were getting their desires and their technically what they thought, they were getting their desires and their needs fulfilled through their audience, their fan base and stuff like that. But as we can see, like with Milli Vanilli, that wasn't necessarily true. They thought that they were. That was just a temporary solution at that time. But after Sylvester Stallone said that, this was his quote. He said, "quote I wish I could get over it, but I can't." And I thought that was very deep right there. Like the fact that he has the self awareness enough to understand that, he's still dealing with that he's still being fed by the audience, the love of his fans and the general public and stuff like that. And he said when he was growing up that movies were his escapism, and that's something that I resonated with during that documentary because I talked about that plenty of times before on this podcast. Like that's why I'm so into movies and TV and stuff like that because I I spent so much time by myself as a kid that that's pretty much all I had was movies and TV. Um, so that's why I enjoy it. You know, it is an escapism for me at times, more so when I was younger than now because I am definitely more wiser and I've healed and I've grown a little bit. So I don't romanticize over movies like I used to or what happens in them. Um, but yeah, movies definitely was an escapism. He said he also said he wanted the hero worship. A lot of the movies that he was watching was like hero type movies and stuff, and he said that's what he kind of wanted when he started doing movies. And as you can see from like a lot of the movies that he's been in and he's wrote, directed, and produced is him being a hero. So that makes sense. He wanted that hero worship or whatever. Um, he also said, during his time, like in the early portion of his career, he said he invented himself a career because he was getting turned down a lot or only seen as he was he was typecast at an early point in his career. So that's why he ended up, writing the Rockies and stuff, Rocky movies and stuff like that. Initially, the original Rocky movie, and he was talking about how when he first wrote the movie or whatever, producers and stuff, studios and producers kept wanting him to just sell over his rights to Rocky and not being at all. But he was like, nah, the Rocky is me, pretty much. And he just wouldn't let go of that. He was like, no, I'm going to be the person that is going to be playing Rocky. Granted, he did, he don't have the rights to Rocky or whatever. He's still fighting over that today. But he ain't let go of that part with, not playing the role of Rocky. One of the things that I definitely picked up on the documentary was he was very determined. Like he was very determined in at his early portion of his career with the acting and stuff like that, and being a fighting for himself, fighting for the things that he wanted and stuff like that. You know, what else? Yeah, one of the most craziest things that on the documentary, not necessarily crazy, because I've seen and heard this situation before, but him and his father had a weird relationship. Like his father was always in competition with him, and he told, excuse me, burp number 5. He told a couple of stories on the documentary. Burp number 6. He told a couple of stories on the documentary of how his father would compete with him and how his father would be jealous of him. And his brother was on the documentary as well, confirmed it or whatever. And one of the things, like when I was watching the documentary, I was thinking to my it had me kind of I won't say emotional, but it kind of had me um it kind of made me feel away. Not because of the portion about his dad or whatever competing with him, but just the overall aspect of how matter of fact, this is exactly this is the reason why I started. I finally sat down and decided to start writing the letter to my mom and my dad. After that was this documentary right here, because after I was watching that documentary and I was seeing how his relationship with his parents or lack thereof affected him, that's when I was said to myself, I need to start writing this letter, because watching the documentary made me feel some type of way. So I guess in a sense I can't say it made me emotional, but not like overly emotional or emotional to extreme, but it made my emotions start bubbling. and it made me really come to the conclusion that I do need to start writing these letters because of how this documentary made me feel. Because, I can watch certain things and it can relate or resonate with me, and it'll move me to a degree. But this one right here, for some reason, it moved me enough to sit down and start writing those letters. So all this stuff is tying into each other, it lines up correctly. But yeah, that's the reason why I decided to write those letters, because of this documentary. But yeah, that that's the last portion of what I wanted to talk about for this documentary, was the fact that those stories that he was telling about his dad, how his father was jealous of him and how his father would do certain things or whatever to put him down or keep him, to make him feel small and stuff. Even though he was successful as he was, they ended up, well, Sylvester Stallone ended up, forgiving his father before his father passed and stuff like that. And they had their moment and stuff, while he was going through his transition. But yeah, that affected him a lot. And this is why, like, I was saying, like, even before I started talking about the documentaries, how, our parents, and how I always talk about it, whether it's on my blog or how I've been talking about on the podcast for years, on how, you know, our parents' relationship affects us in so many ways. And it's those cycles. It's those cycles that need to be broken. And um I ain't gonna lie, as much as I've been going to therapy and working on things and talking about things, writing about things, at times I'm still hard as hell on myself, because I feel like, I'm not where I wanna be. And I I kind of I equate that based off of certain things in my life still being the same, or feeling as though that I haven't feeling as though that I've regressed in certain areas and stuff like that. But I always get, when I've talked about it in therapy, I get reminded that, I've spent a long portion of my life in that space, and now I'm walking this different path of trying to heal and transition and grow and stuff like that. And that period has been much shorter than the period that I'm so used to. And just the fact of life, and how healing isn't linear. It's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be some bumpy roads. There's going to be some ups and downs. There's going to be some times that you will, regress. And that ultimately is possibly a time where you got to go back and correct something or see something again in order to fix it, because or heal from it, because you didn't do it then and there. So, life is funny. Um, but, I've been trying my best to just focus on the present moment in a lot of situations, and, you know, make better decisions based off of the decisions that I'm used to making and stuff like that. Um, yeah, but um, the Sly documentary was a good documentary. So I definitely recommend that one as well, the Sly documentary. One of the things that I wish he would have talked about, but it ain't no big deal because it's none of my business. I ain't go through it. Was the death of his son, his only son, because he has daughters, but his only son um, died. So I thought they was gonna get into that, but I can understand why they didn't go into that. But overall, it still was a good documentary. So last but not least, the Tyler Perry documentary. So my first initial thing that I wrote in my notes for the Tyler Perry documentary was, Tyler Perry is the ultimate alchemist. Like, in my eyes, after watching that documentary. And I know that could have just been my first feelings just based off of the documentary, but just the overall story of his life, and what he went through, and where he is now, and what he what he built, like he I just looked at it like, dude is the ultimate alchemist. He took the most harshest um trauma that you can go through, abuse and stuff like that, and turned it into being a multi-millionaire, possibly billionaire. I don't know his, you know what I'm saying? I ain't counting his pockets and nothing, but yeah. And even though that's material success, but that's still like crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's still like, you got to give him his kudos for that. And I always have a up and down point of view on Tyler Perry, period. Um, but watching this documentary, I got nothing but the utmost respect for Tyler Perry. Um, One of the things he mentioned in the documentary, one of the things that I thought about even before he mentioned it was like, has his success really fulfilled him? And that kind of goes back to the Sylvester Stallone joint and the Milli Vanilli joint. You know what I'm saying? Their success, getting that praise from the audience, the fans, the public, and stuff. Is that really fulfilling him, or is it going to be like a constant situation where you chasing that? And what I know about life and the things that I've experienced, if you haven't necessarily healed from certain traumas and certain situations and stuff like that, it will be a situation where you will always be chasing those temporary feelings, those rushes, whether it's through a vice or is through attention, affection, or whatever from a person, social media, whatever, there will be an element of chasing that all the time, those temporary rushes, those temporary fulfillments, if you don't ultimately, heal from that trauma. So from like I talked about, he went through like abuse, and the reason why he went through the abuse that he went through from his father was his mother had two kids and then had Tyler after those two kids. But his father always suspected that Tyler wasn't his son, and it wound up being true. And Tyler even said that's where he feels that the abuse came from his dad, the physical abuse and mental emotional abuse that he got from his dad was because his dad ultimately knew that Tyler wasn't his son. And he talked about, how his mom and his dad got married at a young age, and his mother probably stayed because of, she ain't have nowhere to go and stuff like that. And his father was the provider for the house or whatever. He provided a house and a home and food on the table and all that other stuff. And then when he started talking about like the early days of his plays and stuff, and how they wasn't successful and stuff, and he was like, one of the most hurtful moments that he experienced was when his mother told him to just give up. But he was resilient, and he decided not to give up. Even though his mother, which was at that time his biggest supporter, told him to give up. Like, she actually got mad at him because, um, if I recall, he borrowed money from her for one of the plays, and it didn't work out the way he didn't get the money back. The play didn't sell as well. He didn't sell enough tickets and stuff like that. So his mother was kind of pissed at him or whatever, and told him that he needed to give up. But it ended up working out for him, of course, as we know. It ended up working out for him. His plays um, was the starting point, the jump off point for everything that we see today, the movies, the studios that he got. And he still faced um adversity, even though when his plays jumped off, when he was trying to go start in the movie industry and making movies and dealing with the studios, and even when he was trying to build his own studio, like the studio he got now is, I think, it's his third or fourth studio. And they talked about it in the documentary, the struggles that he went through while trying to find studios and stuff like that. But of course, also he went through like a little public scrutiny with the Medea character, and there was a lot of people talking about how the Medea character and him doing it and stuff like that was an emasculation of black men, and he felt some type of way about that, and like that's kind of like that was kind of one of my gripes with him at one time. The fact that he was pushing that Medea character so much. It wasn't necessarily the character. It was the fact that he was dressing up as the woman or whatever. So I understood that when they talked about it, because at one point I felt the same way. I mean, like, I feel that way even when Martin dresses up in the dress, or any other comedian dresses up in the dress. Why is it always black men that got to be dressing up in dresses and acting like women? Or like, even if you look at comedy as a whole, you look at it from in the past, and you look at it like now on social media. Some of these social media skit people that call themselves comedians or whatever. Why is it always that black men have to resort to playing a woman or playing gay for comedy? And that's always something that I question and frustrated me. Like, why is that? Because you don't see that nowhere else. But that's something that they went into talking about, and I'm surprised that they went into, because I thought this was going to be a documentary where they just talk nice things about Tyler Perry, and that was it. But they pretty much went through the whole gambit of everything that he went through, that I know of. One of the things that I took a note of that I found interesting was that one of the people that was part of the documentary that was speaking throughout it, he said his mom likes Tyler Perry plays so much because she feels safe. And I thought that was interesting. She feels safe. And I attributed it to maybe because that's, I don't know. I was thinking maybe she said she feels safe because it's it's in the it's her people, it's the play is about black people, for black people, and maybe that's why she said she felt safe. But I thought that was something that was interesting, that that his plays made her feel safe. And it was something kind of it was something that was kind of relayed that other black people felt the way, particularly just black women, not black men, but black women. And I guess I can get that because maybe the Medea character allowed black women to feel safe because it came from that angle of the old southern black woman, or the matriarch of the family. And you don't most of those back in the days, like when you had like the Aunt Jemima and the Mammies and stuff, those were all kind of like characters or people or images that were looked down upon. And with the Medea show, it kind of gave them a sense of, oh, it's getting it's popular and stuff like that, so it feels safer, I guess. I don't know. I can't really speak from a woman's perspective, but that's what I was kind of just trying to work through in my mind. um yeah, during the midst of the whole controversy around the Medea character, and just once he started becoming more successful, and it started being much more of an eye on his content and stuff, like a lot of people. Well, I ain't gonna say a lot of people. Some black people, was a portion of black people that was really asking, like, is this what black people want to see? Like, um, you know, it was some people that was using the word, the buffoonery, coonery, as you know, Spike Lee used that term when he spoke out about Tyler Perry during that time. And what was interesting about that, at Tyler Perry's new studio, one of the sound stages is named after Spike Lee. So I guess they made up. But um, one of the things that I asked while I was taking the notes is, like, is he exploiting the audience? Like, is he exploiting the black community? Similar to, like, I was thinking about it the day when I was getting ready for the show, like how certain in the music industry, like certain black, rap music and stuff like that. Like, most of the artists they don't do what, what I'm saying. They don't live the lifestyles that they rap about, but they know that black people are into that stuff, or we've been programmed to be into that stuff. So then that's the content that they pushing out. And I kind of feel that way about Tyler Perry. That's one of the gripes that I have with Tyler Perry, that I feel as though that to a degree he does exploit the audience. Um, he knows that certain audiences aren't evolved enough or in a space to be beyond certain ignorant activities, whether it be, you know, s- some of his content is kind of cliche to the black community, or I'll just leave it at that. Some of it is very cliche. Some of it is very cliche, and some of it is very stereotypical to the black community, and I think he does exploit that to a degree. You know, um, some of the stuff is kind of soap opery, in that, it's in that soap opera genre, but it is very stereotypical and cliche of black, how others outside of our community see the black community. And one of the questions that they asked during the documentary, though, was like, is it his job to save the black community? No, I don't believe it's his job to save the black community, but I still believe he holds a responsibility to the black community, that the community that is, providing him with this wealth, this material success. So, I mean, not to say that he don't put good messages in his stuff, but some of his stuff, and I was having this conversation with at the time with one of the guys from Separate the Two podcast, um about how, some of his feelings on it was some of his Tyler Perry's content is redundant and corny, and I could see where he's coming from. Some of it is just a, a redundant story, just with different characters and stuff like that, and it's kind of like, it seems that it corny to the aspect of it's just thrown out there to feed the stereotypical stuff that people are used to seeing, and he know they're gonna watch it. So this is something he can easily throw out there without putting that much writing effort into it and stuff, and it'll still sell. It'll still get on, TV. It'll get him. Like, this is something that they explain on the documentary, he um, how he was able to make deals with the television companies in order to get his shows into syndication. And with him getting his shows in syndication, you have to have a certain amount of shows that the TV stations already pick up to make it a syndicated show, and that's where the money comes in at. So I feel like, based off of my conversation with Greg from Separate the Two podcasts and my own thoughts and stuff on his content, that some of his content is just pushed out there to be, because he know that it's stereotypical, and that this is what certain portions of the black community is used to, certain drama aspects, or you know, uh, low level buffoonery comedic stuff, and that's something that they'll run to, and he'll get his syndication from the TV place, get his money, and everybody's satisfied. But I feel like all black people should, when they reach some level of success, whether it's, Hollywood success, music industry success, or just success, period, in your career, it is our responsibility to pull each other up. But in our community, we don't see it that way. It's every man for themselves, or either we just trying to get to where we want to get so we can rub elbows with, you know, the powers to be and be a part of a, a system that isn't doesn't care about us, doesn't want us to be a part of them or anything. But, you know, that's capitalism for you. But he did say that, when he get his detractors and his critics and stuff like that, that hurt him. It hurt coming from the community. And that's one of the things that I have a problem with overall, not just Tyler Perry saying that, is that one thing with our community, a so-called community, is that we take every type of criticism. Every criticism isn't constructive. I get that. But we take any type of criticism, whether it's constructive, not constructive, whatever, and we look at it as hate or something bad. Like, we look at it like all black people supposed to support everything black people do. No, the hell, we aren't supposed to do that. We not supposed to do that. Like, if the stuff is detrimental to our community and our growth or whatever, and even on a smaller scale, if it's detrimental to my immediate family or my kids or like that, then yeah, you should have a problem with it. And this whole narrative, and it's even more bigger today with social media out here. Like, everybody think that if you say something against somebody or have a different opinion or have some type of constructive criticism or don't like something or not really into something, then you're a hater. Like, no, damn, I'm just an individual that have my own taste. And that's what a Taste to Consider podcast has always been about. Just throwing out different things, different points of views and stuff like that, you know, because everybody's not supposed to. I hate followers. And I hate people following behind trends, and just because something popular, they think that they're going to benefit from it by liking it or being a fan of it or whatever. Like, our community is just so skewed in thinking that, and this is just my own experience. Like, it's people all day I see, it's popular podcasts out here, like mainstream podcasts out here, that are done by a former rapper or a former celebrity or current celebrity, current rapper, or whoever. And I'll see people who I've known for years. They will post stuff, comment stuff on their about their shows, their clips, share their clips, comment on their clips or whatever. But they won't even do that for me. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, everybody in our community think that you can't support somebody who isn't popular, but they'll do it with somebody popular because they think they're going to get something out of it. But soon as, if I was to just go viral tomorrow and become one of the biggest podcasts in the world, then everybody, those same people who I've known for years, will be commenting, sharing my clips, and saying they know me and all that other stuff. This is how it goes with the black community. But yeah, he was blown about that time when he was getting a lot of criticism about the Medea character and all that other stuff. His quote was, he said, "Certain class of black people that look down on Tyler Perry." That's what he said. And I don't even like how that quote came out when he said certain class of black people. Like, that was some condescending shit right there. But it is what it is. And then when they started talking about this portion of the documentary and this portion of his career, his life or whatever, and they started talking about how back in the day when Amos and Andy came out in 1953, and how the it was a lot of boycotts from the black community on that to the point where they took it off the air. And that was a good thing because even though it may have messed up the Amos and Andy characters' career, but at the same time, it was part of a time when they was using us as you know coon characters. You know what I'm saying? Making us look crazy on TV and stuff like that. And then they brought up how the original Color Purple movie, how the NAACP boycotted it because of the black male imagery in it, which I get because that movie. I was just talking about that a lot lately since the new Color Purple has come out. But the new Color Purple, that's how it's based on the musical, not the actual movie. So that's been a lot of confusion as well. But yeah, I can see that, and it's no different than like I'll bring up a present example right now. It's no different than like with the so-called rapper Sexy Red with her being out or whatever, and how like her whole image, the music she make, and all this other stuff is detrimental to the black community. But because it's popular, people pushing it. And particularly the people pushing it are people not even in our community, the record labels, the record executives and stuff. They don't care about our community. But we so programmed to always be following behind trends and stuff like that, that Sexy Red is so damn popular now. Like it, I ain't her ass can't rap. She looks I ain't gonna try. She can't rap. Like the whole image of it is just horrible. But she popular as hell. And I don't see that no different than certain situations with some of Tyler Perry's content. Like particularly like some of his content that he has on BET Plus. Like some of that stuff should be on Tubi, honestly. Like the acting, the writing of it, like the stereotypical stuff with it. And it's like, I get that, well, I ain't gonna say I get. I mean, honestly, we live in a capitalistic society and, people going for theirs. But, I'm just not the type of person that I would be in a position of having that type of success and, not evolving in some type of way and pushing a different point of view or a different image to, my people. So that's like really the only gripe I have with Tyler Perry that I always had. But I do definitely respect him. I respect his work ethic and stuff like that. And this documentary made me respect him even more. I feel like Tyler Perry definitely should, you know, what he's done. He's definitely should be getting more flowers than what he has done. I just wish that he would evolve his message and his imagery, his content a little bit more. And during the documentary, I'm about to wrap everything up, but during the documentary, Killer Mike was on there. He brought up white comedy and white comedians and stuff like that, and how they've had questionable imagery that stereotypes and depicts white people in a certain way or whatever. But I'm like, I don't care about that. Like, I'm tired of us always trying to compare ourselves with what white people doing. Like, we always in our so-called community, we always try to make white people the standard of how we should act or where where the ceiling stops or where the floor stops. And we got to stop doing that. I don't care about what they doing and how they do their people, because when it comes down to it, even if it is a select few of white comedians that depict and stereotype their community, they still got power. They still got power. They still got privilege. They got a system in place, so they'll always be on top as long as we keep trying to um, hold our standards up to theirs or next to theirs. And then when it comes down to it, like a lot of the stereotypes, and this is something that is not talked about enough. Black people, we are one of the most biggest um, producers of white supremacy out here. We do that. We do their job for them, and and in some ways, this is how I look at some of Tyler Perry's content. This is how I look at a lot of the rap music out here and stuff like that. We push a lot of their agenda on ourselves, and to the point where they don't have to do no work. They don't. Like the same things that we out here doing with content, with stuff in society and stuff like that. We learned that from them, and we just pushing it on ourselves. Like the stuff that they used to make fun of us on with content back in the days in newspapers and movies and music and stuff like that. We doing the same thing now to our own people. Like it makes no sense. But yeah, it was a good ass documentary. Despite the gripes I have and the how I disagree with certain things. Just because I disagree don't mean I don't respect Tyler Perry and I don't like him. And we gotta get out of that shit. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, this is what Taste to Consider podcast has always been about. You don't have to agree with everything a person feels, thinks, and all that other stuff. It ain't about that. It's just about, what I'm saying, getting a different perspective, getting a different point of view, and respecting that at the same time. And if you don't like it, you got your taste, move on. It's as simple as that. But yeah, like I said, it was a good documentary. I recommend those three documentaries as well as the Bee Gees documentary. And it's also a docu-series that I just recently watched. Excuse me, burp number 7, 8, that I watched on the Max app, called Murder in Boston. It was 3 episodes, and if you don't already know, Boston is one of the racist ass places in America, and it ain't in the South. And this particular docu-series was based on a murder that happened back in the 80s. And it was a murder of a white woman, a pregnant white woman. And it was just a crazy ass story. It showed how racist Boston is. It showed how racist white people can be based off of just pure hatred and lack of information, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a good one. So yeah, check that out as well. And that's about it on the documentaries. Like I said, this is New Year's Eve. I was about to say Christmas Eve. New Year's Eve. Honestly, like around this time, this is something that I considered as well. I considered that, like around this time, the holiday time and stuff like that is a difficult time for me. And having my birthday mixed in this time as well, my birthday being the end of November. The holiday time always is a difficult time for me. I can't wait for January 2nd. Well, shit, January 1st, January 2nd, I just can't wait to get back to the real life. Because I didn't have the typical holiday feels that some people had, some families had, and that's probably why I ain't even on social media. I haven't been having the urge to be on social media as well because I don't want to see that stuff. So yeah, damn. See, I'm fleshing it out right here and now. But I mean, I kind of already knew all this stuff. But yeah, something just been different around this time though. Even though I gotta I'm pointing at my Christmas tree. I finally bought a Christmas tree and put it in my in the tasting room, and I ain't had a tree in years since I lived in this house. I probably had a tree like at the first couple few years when I first moved in, and after that I stopped putting one up. I even threw it away, but I bought a new one this year because I wanted to, what I'm saying. I wanted to get in the Christmas spirit and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, holiday time always a difficult time for me. I just want to get back to the regular scheduled program. I know I've been kind of like in hibernation and isolation mode, so to speak, as well. But I mean, this winter, fall and winter time, that's what you're supposed to do anyway. But yeah, but this might be the last taste. I don't know. Like I said, possibly, but I definitely wanted to finish what I started, and I started putting this episode together. This episode had been done for weeks, a month and a half probably. So I wanted to finish what I started. Maybe I just do need a little break. Who knows? But I definitely wanted to, you know, finish the year off properly. And like I said, the taste reviews ain't going nowhere. Taste reviews, drink edition. New episode been out for a while. Yeah, so you know, I'm not sure how I'm going to do the social media thing honestly because I mean the numbers I got from the last taste review was comparison to even if I was posting and marketing on social media. So that didn't really give me an incentive to get back on social media to market or anything like that. So we'll see. You know, but yeah, I do appreciate, all the listeners, all the viewers, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Music. So yeah, we'll see, this may be the last taste. Maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. I wasn't trying to make it all dramatic, but I did want to, let y'all know what was going on. So we will see. Like I said, once again, I appreciate everybody. I appreciate all the love and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and end this episode off properly and sign off. It's a Taste to Consider podcast. I'm your host, Derek Silver, and I'm out.